doing it.
Okay, no problem. All right. Hello, everybody. Happy Friday. I'm so excited. This is the second roundtable I've had today with Stephanie and Catherine. This morning, we got to sit down with Tamara. It was very early for us over here in America. Now we're at a more decent hour. We've got the awesome Cindy, who is one of my friends here in Atlanta, not just on the internet, but also in real life. Although I do consider YouTube to be real life as well. But we have a really, really exciting show today. And it's interesting because yesterday, Catherine and I, most people know that we had a episode together where we kind of were talking about how we were feeling a little bit down in the dumps and just kind of having like a little bit of pity parties and, you know, that the hardness of growth. And I realized something as I was getting ready. And it's interesting because today we're going to be talking a lot about Kali. And I know I had a subscriber ask us to talk more about this in this dragon energy and the divine feminine, the divine mother. And I will say, after the episode I did with you yesterday, Catherine, and then sitting down and doing the roundtable this morning with a bunch of powerful women, and then being here again with powerful women, right before I signed on to Zoom to do this with you guys, I had a renewed sense of energy. And I just thought that was so cool. You know, my sister, when she was in college, she used to say, I'm here to meet my bridesmaids, not my husband. Now, she ended up meeting her husband in college, but she had this goal that she was going to meet her bridesmaids, that it was important that she had really strong women around her all the time. And I think that is the renewed sense of positivity I feel now, is that I've gotten to you know, in less than 24 hours, I've been able to spend time with really fierce, powerful women who are, again, like the bridesmaids, you know, like it's women, you know, we're coming into this new age where women have always been competitive with each other to get that man. But now that divine feminine is coming back into the play, we're able to have these really strong female connections. And so I have to thank you guys for that, because it's made me feel so much better to have these girl chats with a bunch of really strong, badass women. So thank you so much. And after we got off with Tamara, I took a bar class online and it kicked my ass, but I was just loving it. And, you know, the female teacher was so powerful. I might still a little shaky. My hair is still a little wet, but you know, so I just have to thank you guys. And I thought, how appropriate. We're going to be talking about Kali. And it's interesting. So I have this deck of tarot cards, the Jungian tarot cards, and the Empress card. I don't know if you guys can see this. In the back, there's a dragon. And Kali is often associated with this like fierce dragon energy. And I thought, how appropriate for what we're walking into in this new timeline, where the divine feminine is being brought back into the playing field. And so I want to actually pass the ball over to Cindy, because she's kind of doing these courses to bring up that divine feminine in people. And this is something, Cindy, you've kind of been doing a lot in this life, like really honing in. Of course, everybody knows Cindy on this channel. She's of Peruvian descent. So you come from a line of women that were very strong and very magical. And so I think that's in your DNA as well as we do as well. But I think our ancestors, we got a little bit more separated from their witchiness and their cool magical ways, you know. So and I apologize, guys, if the sound goes in and out. We're having a little bit of issues, but we're just working with what we got. So Cindy, do you want to take the ball with this and start us off and introduce who Kali actually is?
Yes. The one thing I feel like I need to say, though, because I get this question a lot as well, especially when you're talking about some more of these fierce energies like Kali or dragon, and, you know, they come in with like fangs and claws and fire, is especially for those who might come from a conservative background. Yeah, there you see. Are you showing the images of Kali?
Yeah.
That people often get concerned, and they're like, well, are you how do you know that this is coming from the highest good? You know, how do you know that you're not actually channeling demons or some kind of lower vibration?
Right.
And I can say that, yeah, because, you know, you see images of Kali, and she wears a waistband of arms.
Yeah, heads and
a necklace of skulls. And, you know, she comes out with fangs and her tongue sticking out, and it's a frightful image. and and the reason that like the dragons and the collies, they come in so fierce is because they are devourers, but devourers of the ego and aspects of you that are no longer serving you. And they also come in when let's say you're going through a time in your life where you know there's change, that change is coming, but you're having a hard time making the transition into that change. And they'll, like the dragon and the collie energy will come in and they will literally just tear things apart. And at first it feels hard and it feels difficult because you're going through these processes of ego deaths, and they're not always the most pleasant experience. So, you know, sometimes when you see the collie or dragon energy, there's a fear that comes up, but the fear is usually from the ego saying, oh shit,
Yeah.
what's about to happen here? But when they come in, while they're going through this process of destruction, and it might feel even, you know, wrathful, but it's done from a place of unconditional love and from your highest good. And when you're going through these processes, like the divine mother, you know, Kali, she's a divine mother. She's coming to you, even though she looks fierce and with fangs and with arms and with skulls, she's also holding you and nurturing you while you're going through those transitions, and just telling you, just be like, can you just be with it? Just be, don't fight me. The more you fight me, the worse it's going to get. Yeah. But they're not, but this idea that, you know, oh my gosh, is this demonic, or what am I getting myself into here? And I can tell you from doing energy work, I know what demonic energy actually feels like, because I've actually pulled that off with people. And it's a very different feeling than Kali or dragon. But I just wanted to put that out there to, you know, just for some people who this is new to, and you see like fangs and claws and fire, and you get a little like, oh my gosh, you know, that's frightening. Those particular energies, yes, they can be frightening, but they're usually frightening to the part of you that's resisting change.
Yeah. Well, I want to point out,
they're going to come in bringing big change into your life. You're more likely are going to go through this destructive process.
And I'll point out too, I was just telling this to Stephanie, one of the biggest misconceptions about the Hindu faith is that people believe it is polytheistic, and it's not. The Hindu faith is actually monotheistic. They have the tri-head, like Christianity, we have Father, Son, Holy Ghost. They have Shiva, Vishnu, Brahman. That's their tri-head. And I asked a man in India once, like, what's the difference between Christianity and Hinduism? He goes, oh, Christians believe God came to earth one time. Hindus believe God came to earth many times. And I just kind of laughed at that. I was like, well, that's very humbling. You know, he's got to keep coming back. And one thing too, you know, we've been talking a lot about like Jesus or Yahshua and the Magdalene, the Mary Magdalene. We've talked a lot about, Cindy, that's coming back into the forefront now, that it's not just about, you know, down with the patriarchy. It's finding that balance between the divine feminine and the divine masculine. And that's one thing you see in the Hindu faith as well, as that these avatars of God all have a masculine and a feminine. Kali has her divine masculine, but they're both equally powerful. And something too with a lot of these Hindu deities is that oftentimes their skin is blue. With Kali, sometimes she's depicted with black, very dark skin. And I've been taught that is because they come in and they drink the poison off of you. So they take that from you, which is not serving you. And that's why their skin changes colors. You see, because they're taking that, and like you said, that very nurturing, loving way. And yes, I know I've had episodes, Kali seasons in my life, where I think we all have, where all of a sudden, out of the blue, everything just goes topsy-turvy. And you don't know what's going on. You feel like you've lost everything, but then out of it emerges a new path, because she is the bearer of death, but she's also the bearer of life, which is what Ganesh does as well. There's a lot of similarities between Ganesh and Kali, but Ganesh is a little bit more mild, I would say, a little bit more mild in his approach to it. But yeah,
Yeah, and another way that I've heard it explained to me too about the different the deities and such in the pantheon, the Hindu pantheon, is that they're pieces and aspects of the bigger God.
Yep.
That our ancestors, the people who came up with the idea of these deities, it was God. The idea of God is so big that it was too hard to wrap your human mind around the bigness of God. So they took the idea of God, he, she, whatever you want to call it, the creator, the creatrix, however you envision God for you, and they divided his energies into more bite-sized pieces. So, Kali is this fierce feminine energy of death and destruction, but that's also an aspect of God. Like Ganesha, he's the remover of obstacles. I love Ganesha, but that's also an aspect of God. Lakshmi, and she's an aspect of the divine feminine that's all about luxury and abundance and all those, and prosperity. But that's also an aspect of God. So it's like taking this huge idea of God that's too big for our minds to wrap around and putting it into smaller pieces for us to be able to comprehend. And I just made a video yesterday with a friend of mine, and we talk about the mystics axiom, which basically it says as above, so below. And what these deities represent, no matter what pantheon they come from, whether it's the Hindu pantheon or the Greek pantheon or the Roman pantheon, is that yes, they're bite-sized nuggets of God, God itself, but they're also aspects and representations of you. Yes. So that when you forget something about yourself, yesterday we were talking about the aspect of Jupiter and Zeus, who represents the aspect of God, which is all about expansion and abundance. But we sometimes contract and we come into our smallness. We forget how expansive and abundant we are. And then, we might work with an essence like Jupiter, let's say, to help us remember our abundance and expansion. Yes. So that's the way that the traditions work with these different deities. So Kali is here to remind you that you are both a magnificent creatrix who can, create from the dark womb, from the place where everything comes from, like from the original womb. Like you have the power to go into that space, and you also have the power to destroy, but not to destroy. I mean, you do have the power to destroy in a negative way, but you have the power to destroy and create new lives, and to create new timelines. You know what I mean? It's like that power, that Kali essence, that power, it's within you. I mean, she comes and she helps you out, but
it's pulling from you.
Yeah, like,
and isn't that like what's happening right now, though? We talked about this morning with Tamara that the opposite of war isn't peace, it's creation, and there has to be destruction before something can be rebuilt. We talked about that this morning. That's, would y'all say we're in like a Kali season as humanity right now?
We have been for several years.
Yeah, I mean, you've only got to look at the way nature works in terms of, nature will have fires that seemingly destroy something, and then everything comes back renewed and stronger from that. And I was just looking, my daughter cleared one of our areas of our garden, and it's just incredible how quickly it's recolonized and how strong the new colony of plants has come back. What is the significance, Cindy, of the tongue, the sticking the tongue out?
I don't know that one. I think I used to know that, but I can't remember that anymore. But it's because everything, if you look at her, the symbol of her, like she has her foot standing on this little beast, or this little, sometimes, yes, it's a person, and that's like the ego. That's there's a lot of deities that are standing on something, and that's like them standing on the ego. It's like the death of the ego, like, yes, I've got you. The tongue part, I'd have to look it up. I can't remember that exactly, but I'm pretty sure, like with all of those, there's a deep meaning to every part of it.
The reason
every
I was
single,
asking is because do you remember a couple of years ago, a lot of the pop stars and things, there was this whole thing where everyone would take their picture with their tongue out. And I'm just wondering if it's related in some way. There was a phase where for about a year, everyone's selfies of the younger people were
Their
with their
tongue out.
tongue out. Yeah, you know, I can remember
Gene
Miley Cyrus.
Simmons from what was the
Yeah.
band he was in?
You know, I'll have to research that though, because that's a great question.
But that's
I'm sure
I
that
like how you
I'm sure it means something.
I like how you pointed out the details, because all the Hindu deities, like one of my favorite things to do in India is to go to these really old Hindu temples. That and it's funny because India is like, it's like a country of chaos, but there's like order in the chaos, and there's like a relaxation, and they have these old temples that some of them are abandoned, and you go in and like look at the structures and how they've really taken so much time to like chisel these beautiful deities and these beautiful characters on the wall. And there's just so much detail. Like a lot, like with Ganesh, for example, a lot of people think Ganesh is the elephant god, but only his head is elephant. You know, the story is the original head of the body of the boy was cut off by Shiva. And so Shiva had to go and get a head to put back on, and he put an elephant head on. And
Yeah,
so
because Parvati was very upset because
Yeah.
Ganesha was the son, a creation of Parvati or Shakti.
yeah,
And when she found out that Shiva cut off her son's head, man, she got pissed off. And so Shiva was like, ooh, woman, pissed off. Let's fix this.
hell has no fury
And
like a
went and
woman
found
scorned.
the first animal and put the head of that on Ganesha.
Ganesh. And
I
you
love
look at
elephants.
the beautiful thing about Ganesh is you see with the head. So the body is the body of technically of a human being. You can see that with the feet. But with Ganesh, the beautiful thing people talk about how he's got two ears and a very big ears and a small mouth. So he's there to listen. And he's one of the most famous of all the Hindu deities, one of my favorite deities. And we see that a lot because Stephanie, you were asking me earlier before we started filming if these were like mythological or if they're based in any type of like true story. And when I first started going to India and really started to understand the Hindu faith, I perceived them as being fully mythological. But at this point, because we have all this idea of like off-worlders, and we know that we see all this stuff in the Bible that was taken out, I'm starting to wonder if they aren't off-worlders, if they aren't some reality of something. And I know like one of my favorite stories of Hanuman from the Ramayana, and Hanuman is the monkey god. And in the Ramayana, Ra is the how do you spell Hanuman? Here we go. He is the Ra is the avatar of God, and Ra marries Sita. Well, Sita, so if Ra is God, Sita is the representation of the soul. Well, the 10-headed demon Ravana ends up kidnapping Sita and bringing Sita to Sri Lanka, the island off of the coast of India. And Ra is distraught because he's missing his wife Sita. Well, that's God missing the connection to our soul, that because the ego, Ravana, again, that demon represents the ego. And so he hires Hanuman, this monkey god, who is the son of Vishnu, which the wind, the breath, to be able to go and rescue Sita. So he has to defeat Ravana, who is this 10-headed demon that every time you cut a head off, a new one grows back. It's the ego. So his mission through the breath, through the courage of breathing, through the courage of action, is to return the soul, Sita, back to God. And we are Hanuman. We are Hanuman and we are Sita. And we have to take that courage. That's a fierce looking Hanuman right there. To go. And there's a very famous line that Hanuman says. And he says, when I forget who I am, I serve you. When I know who I am you. And it makes it, when I think about that line, it's just when I forget who I am, I serve you. When I know who I am you. And
an aspect of Hanuman's story that I think goes very well with what you were talking about at the beginning, Brice, where you were saying how you were kind of feeling down in the dumps, but then you were gathering with everyone and you felt much better. Well, there was a point where at the beginning of the story, right, that Hanuman, he has superpowers, but he didn't know he had superpowers. He completely forgot that he had superpowers. That was part of his punishment for trying to eat the sun.
Yep.
He thought the sun was a mango. And he completely forgot that he was a part God, because he's the son of Vishnu. And what made him remember were his friends. His friends told him, it was the bear one. I can't remember what his name is, but the bear said to him, he was like, hey, don't you remember that you're the son of Vishnu, that you have superpowers? And just from that, he remembered in all his glory who he was.
Yeah.
And so your friends, your people, your tribe, they're here. Like, you forget that you have your wisdom, your power, your superpowers, but your friends, your tribe, they're here to help you remember.
Yeah. It's a beautiful story. We have a big Hanuman on the wall at our shala here in Atlanta. It's Hanuman's a beautiful story. I have actually a little Hanuman in my car that hangs off of my my rear view mirror, because I remember that story of him, like that courage to remember, because Hanuman has the ability to jump from the banks of India all the way to Sri Lanka. He's the only one that's able to defeat Ravana, to take the soul back to God. And you're right, that's showing it. As our friend Janine says, we are magical beings. We just don't know. I mean, they want to tell us that we have 97% junk DNA, but are we Hanuman? Is that junk DNA? No.
And when you were asking whether they're mythological, maybe in a sense they are mythological, but your energy, like your prayers, human prayer and energy has power to it. Mm-hmm. And when you put your energy into something, your prayer into, let's say, Hanuman or Ganesha, or whatever you're feeling like you need to pray to at the time, whether it's Magdalene, Mother Mary, whether it's Jesus, it's the Christ consciousness, whatever it is, that their essence, their energy grows and extends with your prayer and your belief in it. That is how powerful our belief is, though. That is how powerful our prayer and it is our most highest superpower is your imagination and your belief, that when you pray into something with all your faith, that the energy of that thing actually expands and grows. So Ganesha is alive and well because he has so many, especially in India, so many people who pray to him, as is Kali. Kali is alive and well.
Oh yeah.
Where, some of the ones who have lost
their rank,
lost their prayer, that they actually lose their strength with
I asked the Hindu man in India once, so how many times has God come back? How many avatars are there? And he goes, oh, too many.
Yeah.
Ladies, I will be right back. My son is at the door and he won't go, so I'm gonna go.
That's fine. That's fine. Yes. No, too many. I love the Indian culture. They're so funny. They're so funny about life. But it's funny because I know, Cindy, we've talked about this a lot because we both run courses, and one of my favorite most impactful books I've ever read and continue to restudy periodically is the Bhagavad Gita. And of course, that's Krishna is the avatar in the Bhagavad Gita. And you talked about this idea of God, the creator, the source, being so huge that we have to kind of break it down into bite-sized pieces because we just can't fathom something. First of all, our body, we can't even imagine something that never had a beginning or an end, that just always has been. Like that, what? That it's just always been, because we live in a natural cycle of birth, life, death. And in the Bhagavad Gita, there's a scene, for those who've never read the Bhagavad Gita, it's a small little story in a bigger book, but it's about this kid, Arjuna, who has to go to battle. He's a warrior. He has to go to battle for this land in India, and he's standing on the whole story is him having this like literal come to Jesus moment, but it's a come to Krishna moment, where he's standing on the battlefield and he's facing off against his family, his friends, his teacher, people that he's really loved in his life. And now he has to go to actual war against them. And he's having this like moment of panic where he doesn't want to do it. And so Krishna, who is with him, who is the avatar, has these conversations with him. And Krishna is a very, the Christ, the Krishnas were the Christ, this idea, he's a very loving, he's very similar to the Jesus from the Bible. Like there's a very loving aspect. He's not, they all have their different ways of maneuvering within their environment, and their different bite-sized pieces of God. And Krishna, first of all, tells Arjuna, like, Arjuna's trying to get out of this. Like, he don't want to do this. And Krishna's kind of like, toughen up, Buttercup. You're a warrior. This is your dharma, which is kind of what a lot of us are dealing with right now. We're having to go up against, and we're losing friends. It's almost like this toughen up, Buttercup. Like, this is your dharma. And then Arjuna begs Krishna to show him the full extent of who he is, the full extent of God. And Krishna's like, bro, you don't want to do that. I'm telling you, bro, not going to be good for you. But Arjuna's like begging him to show him. And so he's like, all right, I warned you, you can't handle the truth. And he allows himself to kind of break out of his body into that avatar to show his full extent. And Arjuna's just can't even look. Like, he's just in so much pain to actually try to see the full scope of what God actually is. And so then Krishna has to come back into his Krishna body. He's like, told you so,
But that also forges his belief, because until that point, Arjuna doubted the whole entire time. He was still like, just like how we doubt, like how you doubt, when you have the obstacles that get in your way, and you're like, man, am I doing the right thing? And no, I don't think that this is the right thing. And, all the self-doubt that comes in. And, Arjuna had a lot of that doubt, but it wasn't until that moment where his faith kicked in, and he surrendered at that point, when he saw the full expression of God and said, you know what? I am going to do what you tell me to do, because now I see. It's all about our perception. And when we go through like these Kali seasons or these difficult situations, your perception shifts. And there's Clarissa Pinkola Estes. I don't know if y'all have read her book, Women Who Run with the Wolves, but it's one of my favorites. If you're talking about, if you want to, enhance or grow or understand woman, primal instinct and all this stuff, dragon type, feeling, that wolf feeling, is she talks about the skull light. And it's you being able to see through the clear lens of perception. But when you're seeing things through the skull light, it's not pretty. Like that means you take off your rose-covered glasses, kind of like how Arjuna saw. That was the skull light, the perception of seeing everything. And when we go through like the processes that you're talking through, when you see clearly, at first it's just so very unpleasant. It can be, to see the truth is not always that pretty, but it's the truth that you need to see to gain your discernment, and for your instincts, for your true instinct, primal instinct to kick in, your skull light must kick in.
Yeah.
And
we've gone through that. We've gone through that big time. I mean, we were talking this morning. We were like, what was it? Seeing the reality of the situation. I think that's what we've all been through this. And I've heard people say, and I've said this before too, like even just the crumbling of our perceptions in this timeline of what we thought was real and what isn't real. And we were laughing this morning about how we don't even know like how close continents are to each other, because we're doubting everything we've been taught now, how that facade is falling. But then you look at people who are not at that point yet to even entertain an idea like that. And that idea, I know we talk about the red pill a lot, but there's also this idea of the black pill, that when you go through the dark night of the soul, when you have to face certain truths that totally blow your perception of reality out of the water. And it can cause that it's that hard truth, as you were saying, like that you have to face and you have to acknowledge, and you have to be in that sense of almost mourning in order to break through, which again goes back to the Kali energy and the dragon energy. And we've heard Janine speak a lot about the dragon. We've heard Ashley speak a lot about the dragon. You see dragons, right, Cindy, when you were
yes, oh my goodness, when I was working with it, it came in really strongly when I was working with Mother Mary Magdalene, which was really strange because I wouldn't have ever associated dragon energy with them before. But it was this idea that we were talking about, is the fierceness of unconditional love. And see, both Mary Magdalene and Mother Mary, in my opinion, this is my opinion, that their power was diluted, like extremely diluted to, and then that also carried over into just women in general, where we were diluted to like the optimal divine feminine, or I mean, I don't think it was divine, but it was maybe what was considered it at the time was more like soft and nurturing, and is always the martyr.
Yeah.
And always giving back, and can't really have anything for herself. This idea that the feminine was more demure and there simply to serve in a more subjugated way.
Yeah.
And even Mother Mary, Mary Magdalene were portrayed that way. Mary Magdalene was always like crying, and she was a prostitute and all this stuff. In other words, her essence was very much diluted, as was Mother Mary. And what I came to figure out from the dragon coming in with them was like, no, we are actually very, very fierce. And this is the part of the sacred feminine, I think that's really coming out right now, which is why the dragon energy is coming in to so many people, not just me, but it's been happening to a lot of women. And it's just a time, because it's funny, when energies come in, they don't just come into one person.
No.
You'll start hearing lots of people talking about it at once. That means that that energy is coming in full force. And the dragon aspect of the female energy is to bring back that sense of, no, we're the mama bear. I mean, think of like even Mother Mary, what she had to go through to birth a savior. Like she had to birth him through, and to watch him die, and to watch him suffer, and to be there for him through all those different stages. That is a dragon. That's not some just like boo-hoo mama. That's a dragon. And then Mary Magdalene, who stood next to him in the same light, in the same power. She stood next to him in ministry. That is a dragon. That's the dragon female energy that's wanting to come in. It's like, it's time for women to understand it's okay for you to step in your power in a fierce way, not in just like a martyr way, and I always have to be giving. Like it's been Lilith. Lilith is a big energy that's been working with me for many years, and she's like Adam's first wife, right? In her story, and she got kicked out. She got kicked out of Eden because she wanted to be on top. Damn it! And Adam was like, "No, man, you can't be on top." And they kicked her out of Eden. And anyways, I love her story.
Well, isn't that the book of Esther too, where I think it's the book of Esther, where the king she marries had a wife before Esther, but he like divorced that wife, kicked her out because she wouldn't submit to him. Like he would like summon her to the bed, and she was like, "No, I gotta wash my hair." And he was like, "Get out of my kingdom." And then that like she was painted as this like bad person because she wouldn't submit, whereas Esther submitted. And so it's interesting to see the I think it was Esther, maybe, yeah, where it's interesting to see how these strong women have been. I mean, you were talking about Methuselah the other day in class too, with the snakes in the hair, and her story, and how she was just totally wronged and was totally just demonized.
Well, if you look at Medusa's story, she was did we talk about this already? I can't remember where I talked about what, but anyway, it's like Medusa's story where she was an apprentice of, I think it was Demeter or Aphrodite. I can't remember which one. It was Aphrodite, Demeter. One of those higher ones. I can't remember which one. And she beautiful. Medusa was a beautiful, beautiful goddess who was just in love with Demeter, Aphrodite, or whichever one it was. I can't remember. And was her servant, and just absolutely loved her. Well, Poseidon was having an affair with Aphrodite, Demeter, whichever one it was. And Poseidon saw the beauty of Medusa and came in and violated her. And then Demeter, Aphrodite, I need to look it up, got like jealous and turned her into the Gorg that she is with the snake heads or with the snake hairs and the demon eyes. And she got, put in a cave, and men were sent there to, you know, to try to kill her and everything. And I mean, and her story just had a terrible ending. You know, and whenever men, the only thing she could do was turn them into stone. So she turned them into stone, and then, you know, Perseus comes and cuts off her head at the end. And, you know, her story doesn't have like a happy ending, but she is like the essence of sacred rage. Like,
which Mary Magdalene talks about, right? The sacred, the wisdom of the wrathful person, like having that wisdom within rage and anger.
Yeah, I love Medusa.
Yeah, it's interesting. You know, yesterday in America, we kind of, I don't know if we spoke about this morning with but we just had Josh Duggar, who was yesterday convicted of some pretty awful stuff we can't talk about on YouTube, but you guys know what we're talking about. And I've done a lot of deep dives into the IBLP, which is a very, very conservative fundamentalist group led by Bill Gothard here in the United States. And the role of women in these like super conservative fundamentalist groups is basically, you're not really even a human. You're kind of just a vessel for the man, and you have to submit. Like, they don't believe in marital RAPE. They don't, you know, you have to be completely subservient. And this guy, that's his wife, like, you know, I've been thinking, my empathy, people like get mad at her because she's still married to him, but she's totally brainwashed. But I've been thinking a lot about with Kali in her life, like her husband just got found guilty of CP. So you guys know what that is with young people. And now she's probably going to get like, what, 20 years maybe in federal prison. And how that this is such a Kali moment for her, because she's been so brainwashed and led to believe that everything about who she is as a person through this very toxic theology comes through him. And now and there's been many opportunities where he's done things where she should have left a long time ago. But of course, and the only reason why I know that all this stuff, guys, for people who are not in America, is that they have a reality show. So they are pretty famous here in America. And now he's been forced away from her into federal prison. And I can't help but like be so, I know she's at the depths of despair right now because she's lost who she believes is the only person that can really give her life, which is her husband. But now that Kali energy is there for her to empower her to walk away, to give her the power to stand on her own 2 feet. And this is an extreme example of religious ABUSE. An extreme example, but we see that in a lot of like through the age of Pisces, of how women were taught to be demure, women were taught to be submissive. I remember when I was a little girl, we would go over to my mom's parents passed away when I was relatively young, but my dad's parents, we'd like go over to their houses, on some Sundays and have like dinner. And my mom's, before my parents got divorced, would get really mad at my dad afterwards. She'd always get mad at him because she would be like, Lee, your mom, you literally boss her around when we're all sitting at the dinner table. You like get her to get up and go get you stuff all the time. And she does it, but you're a fully grown man. You can get up and get your own damn things. Like, let her sit and eat. But we've been trained, and my grandmother was a badass. Like, she meditated and she believed in reincarnation, but we've been trained to treat women, they're the mother that has to give everything for their children, give everything for their families, everything, even when their kids are grown. My grandmother's getting up, getting everything, not even eating herself. And this paradigm shift is totally happening right now. And we're seeing how, and again, it's not to diminish the patriarch. We need men. We need divine masculine as well. But we're finding that balance now between the divine feminine and the divine masculine, where they can work in equal parts to each other. And I think it's incredible. And I think you're right. It's like, it's a collective moving forward. You're seeing this with so many people are experiencing the same type of energies coming into their lives. And that's such a beautiful thing.
Yeah. And, you know, when I was working, I was working with Mother Mary Magdalene, and soon after that, I started working with Kuan Yin, and the dragon that was present suddenly shifted. But it was a dragon nonetheless, but it was more of like a white, pearlescent more of an Asian looking type dragon. The dragon that came in with Mother Mary, Mary Magdalene were Game of Thrones dragons. When people watched that, but they were like,
Yep.
well, I was like, oh my. But it shifted with Kuan Yin, but it was still a dragon. And it was interesting because I was never really that attracted to working with Kuan Yin that much because she seemed more mellow, right? She's the goddess of compassion. And I was always attracted to like Kali and Lilith and Medusa and all these, like all these more fierce ones. Well, Kuan Yin is the goddess of compassion. I thought, well, she's soft. Yeah, that's what they look like. It was the Game of Thrones dragon. It was like that kind of a dragon. But anyways, Kuan Yin came in with her idea of compassion, but the dragon aspect of compassion and of Kuan Yin is to cultivate true compassion from the heart. It's forged in suffering.
Yeah.
It's forged in your own suffering. It's forged from realizing that, wow, there's really a lot of yucky stuff that's going on there right now. And it's not running from the suffering. You don't turn your back on the suffering. You lean into it.
Mm-hmm.
And in that leaning in, it breaks open your heart. It like adds a total dimension to your heart when you start to allow in the pain and the suffering that you've gone through, that other people have gone through. And that's something we usually try to avoid, right? We usually we think suffering, like, we turn our backs on it because we feel like it's too much for our heart to hold. But one of the things that I think we're coming into in this new earth as we're evolving as a human being is how much our heart can hold.
Yeah.
And the idea of like the Grinch who has this little tiny heart and it expands out beyond the box in the movie. Our hearts are needing to do the same thing. That the container of your heart is so much bigger than what we allow it to be. Sometimes we think, the heart, it's loving, but it's a depth of love that also comes from a willingness to look at deep suffering and pain. And that's the dragon aspect of that as well. That is how your heart grows.
We were talking about that yesterday, Catherine.
Yeah, it's really fascinating because I know so little about this, so I'm just loving just sitting here absorbing us. But I don't know why this just keeps coming up for me over the last couple of weeks. It's not shutting off in, but I'm wondering why we're so focused on the suffering, and that it has to be through suffering that we learn and grow a lot of the time. And I'm wondering whether when we move into the age of Aquarius that we can move past that and learn through other ways, because yes, that's one way we can learn. But for example, Joe Dispenza talks about you don't have to wait until you've got some terrible disease to change your lifestyle habits. It's one way of learning and evolving. But I do sometimes feel we're so focused on that as a way of evolving. Are we actually attracting that in? And I'm not saying, I completely agree with you, Cynthia. It's so important that we don't shut out suffering and turn our back on it, because we all do go through that. But I just feel, I don't know, that the focus is so much on it, and yet we can learn and evolve through other ways as well.
I would agree. I mean, I think you can. I think it's just like what you said, Catherine, that you don't turn your back on it, but you don't need to invite any more suffering in your life. I think it's the relationship. The way I see it, it's the relationship that we have with it. And what I was talking about Kuan Yin and the suffering that we do face, transmuting it into something more beautiful, like compassion. That's the alchemy part, right? It's like transmuting it into alchemy. But no, you don't need to have suffering in your life all the time. That would be just absolutely miserable. Like Kali seasons in your life, they should be few and far between. That should not be your whole entire life. They just kind of happen when they need to happen because we're stubborn, because we can't see. But I think that there are plenty of people in life that don't need that. That they don't need to have Kali seasons. Like, they're here to just be pure, beautiful, love, light, and share that. I think that people are here in different parts. Like the reason I focus on it is because it's kind of what I do. Like that's what I help people with. Like I'm a shadow worker, so that's what I do. So I tend to talk about it more than an average person, but not everybody is a shadowy person. I mean, there's some people probably like you, Catherine, like you're just like, I just want to love, you know, I just want to expand. I just want to, you know, do this, and I just want to shine more of that. And yeah, I mean, if that's what you feel like your dharma, like that's what you want to do, and you're not attracted to that other part, then yeah, I mean, go your route. Like do the love work, you know what I mean? Like do that.
Yeah, I think it was so helpful to sort of say that it's really helpful to know that people, when they're going through the Kali time, that's nothing to be ashamed of. It's to be embraced, and you're going to learn and grow and move forward from that. So I think that's so positive, because I don't know anyone that hasn't been through a Kali time. Quite honestly,
I think a lot of us are going through a Kali time right now.
Yeah, mine. So I can see it's really positive. I just and I suppose perhaps it's a lot of what I've heard people talking about over the last few weeks, because of where we're at the moment, is just they're sort of very focused on, well, it has to be this hard, it has to be this way. But I just do feel that moving forward, we're moving forward into a different way of learning, and we don't have to all go there, you know, quite so often, or as humanity, we don't have to go there. And if we're more aware of it, I suppose the more people talk about it and bring awareness to it, the less you have to actually go there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, to focus on the beautiful things, for sure, because there's so much beauty in the world that's happening right now simultaneously. Like there's a lot of death and destruction and all this stuff, but there's so much beauty. If there wasn't beauty in the world, we would be in an apocalypse for sure. Mm-hmm. But it's the beauty in the people, and the love and the kindness, and the people who can see things. Probably like you, Catherine. It's like you're ready, like you see the light. You're ready to see the light, and you're ready to move into that new golden age, and like you see it and you feel it, right? And there's a lot of that we need, for sure. You know, a lot of, hey, look, there's another side to this. There is a lot of beauty and a lot of love and a lot of good people. Like not everybody is bad. There's a lot of good people in the world too. And yeah, let's focus on that.
That's such an important point, isn't it? Because with the, whatever we want to call it, the awareness, the awakening we've all gone through, by the very nature of learning about it, I mean, certainly, you know, I've come across so many things over the last couple of years that I didn't even know existed, you know, were just completely not in my reality at all. And I suppose because we've been going through and talking about that, like you were saying the other day, Brice, that you don't need to talk about the little people as much anymore because you've been through that curve, that learning curve, whilst of course so many people haven't been through that yet. And that's where they're going to need so much of that support, isn't it, Cindy, that you offer? Because when you do realize, I mean, a lot of people are blissfully ignorant and just, they can't understand what's been happening because it's just not in their consciousness. That I don't want to even call them people, really. I don't know what to call them, but you know, that psychopaths could act in this way, because for most normal people, that's beyond their comprehension, that level of evil.
Yeah.
I was just going to say one thing, just in response to what you were saying, Catherine. Yes, I mean, the people, I mean, not just me, but people need people like you in the world who's the light on the other side, who says, okay, here's like the other, there's like all this, you know, sometimes we got to go through all this mucky stuff, but look, here's the beauty that's on the other side. Come here. So like, you're the light that directs. Come here, you know, come here. This is where you want to go. You know, there's some people that guide through the muck, And they're the ones that are on the other side that are saying, hey, there's something better. There's something more beautiful here.
That's what Mr. T keeps saying throughout the whole of his term was, what the best is yet to come. The best is yet to come. The best is yet to come. And I know, and even if we look at like the law of one, which I speak about a lot because it makes a lot of sense as to what's happening now, combined with the book of Revelation and this idea of timeline shifting. Again, as I said yesterday, you know, consciously we hear people talk about we're moving from third density to fifth density, or excuse me, third dimension to fifth dimension. That's a conscious approach. But the physicality of our bodies and our earth are moving from third density to fourth density. And what I understand from the theories behind the law of one is that in third density bodies and in third density planets, you are a planet of polarization. So you have the dark and the light, you have the suffering and the joy, but moving into fourth density positive, a fourth density planet can't be polarized. It either has to be positive or negative. I don't know what that looks like because we only know the polarity side of it. So when we move into 4D, we might not need the suffering anymore. That might not be a part of the patterning of that density. I don't know, you know, so that's
and this beauty, this peace, this joy, it's, you know, the truth that has always been the truth from the beginning of time is that it's all available to you right now.
Yeah.
You don't have to wait for it. It is all available to you right now. Every single bit of it is available to you right now. We're just veiled. That's what happens. We just get veiled. We forget. We get confused, which is why these Kalis and these dragons, they come in and they're like, you know, wait a minute, you've just forgotten who you are. But in order for you to remember, we need to destroy the veils of limitations that you put upon yourself that you've chosen to believe. When that is destroyed, then you'll be able to see that it's been with you all along.
that
I
blindfold.
think that oh sorry, Brice, go ahead.
Go ahead. No.
So something that just came to me too came to me a couple weeks ago, but more or less now that we're talking about this, is a lot of us divine feminine too. I feel like the divine is stripping away the old to allow us to take a step forward first so that we can usher in others. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of the old stuff, a lot of the old relationships, a lot of the old habits, a lot of the old belief system has had to be, it's like an onion, and you take away the layers of the onion and the beauty is in the middle. Well, not really in an onion. That's a bad analogy, but you know where I'm going with that. It's like you have all these layers and layers of programming, of relationships, of all these different things. And in order for us to be healers in this next world, whatever it looks like, we kind of have to, I think us awakened people have one foot in that other world already without even really realizing it, in order to bring in the next, you know, the usher in these other people who are still sleeping or might be a little bit sleeping and a little bit awake. You know, we're going to be the ones who I think form. Does that make sense? Like I'm trying to come up with the correct wording.
No, you're right too, Stephanie. The things about the healers and the teachers and why they often have to go through the chaos, it's because it's through like my chaos, the chaos that I have had to go through. I can recognize it in someone else. But when someone comes to see me and they've got some shit going on, I can say, you know, I get this. I understand this. I've been through this, and I've helped lots of people go through this, and I can help you better. And that's one of the reasons for like teachers, like teachers and healers, why it's not always the mystic's path is not always the most. I mean, it can be a pleasant path, but it's not. It usually comes with lots of ups and downs.
Yep.
It's so that you can understand the descent, so that you can help people. When you go through your descent, you know, then you have to come up through your ascension.
Mm-hmm.
Then you can navigate people through theirs. So you understand the descent, you understand the feelings that are there, and you can help navigate people up through the ascent because you went through it.
Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly what I was alluding to. So yeah, it makes perfect sense. That, you know,
Sorry.
Go ahead, Catherine.
No, I was just agreeing with you, both of you. That just makes such perfect sense. And the thing is, that's the beauty of life, is you don't all have to, you learn your lessons and then you help pass them on to others that want to, because you're then constantly speeding up the process and making it smoother, because not everyone has to go through the same death. All the lessons that every healer's learned, every coach has learned and everything, they're then helping other people's to get through it a lot quicker and a lot easier, hopefully, each time they go through it, which is just moving all of us in the direction that we want to a lot quicker and speeding up that whole process.
Exactly. Not everyone has to go through it.
Yeah.
I agree with you on that 100%, Catherine. Not everyone has to go through, not everyone needs to go through it.